Joining us now for more on this hot sector, Pier Paolo Barbieri, founder and CEO of Fintech firm Uala, which closed a new round of funding last month, valuing the company at $2.45 billion. The round was led by SoftBank and Tencent. Pier Paolo, it's great to have you on. That was one of the biggest financing rounds ever in Argentinian history. Was it the biggest?
Yeah, for a while, yes.
And that you are truly a unicorn. Congratulations. Not that old, and you've done it mostly in Argentina, but you're also, we should let, and we're going to get into what you do, but you're also in Mexico, but that's much more recent and a huge market for you. And then you're going to go from there, I think.
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, when you look at what's happening in fintech globally, and this recent transaction by PayPal shows a clear trend of where we're going, you can see a market that is greatly underserved in the world, and that is Latin America. In Latin America, over 50% of adults have never had a payment mechanism, so they're completely out of the digital economy. And so they need solutions to pay, to save, to create a credit history, to get insurance, and the penetration of all these products is extremely low. And so that's where we come in. We provide a universal account, a global MasterCard, and then we layer services on top of that, be that credit, savings, investments, now insurance and merchant acquiring services. And so that allows people to be integrated into a rapidly digitalizing global economy in a faster, easier, cheaper way.
Fast growth. You got 10% of the country, Argentina we're talking about again, signed up. About a quarter of the young population, 18 to 25% already. And you could break even when? You're going to break even near term.
Yeah, we're going to break even next year. So we launched 3.5 years ago. And by the middle of next year, end of next year, we think that we're going to break even in our home market because we're now rapidly growing merchant acquiring services, which has been historically extremely expensive in emerging markets such as Argentina. And so if you think about it, in the United States, a provider like Square charges around 2% for a transaction. In the emerging markets, it's normal to see solutions that charge up to 6 and 7%. We charge 50% less than that. And so that business is growing and it's profitable. And that helps us give cards to everyone and help everyone build a credit history, which is extremely necessary in emerging markets. But obviously, it goes beyond Argentina. We launched, as I said, almost 4 years ago in Argentina, 3.5. But 9 months ago, we launched in Mexico. Mexico is a market where 70% of people have never paid with anything but cash. Argentina is a similar level. 50% of people don't have a card. And so these are markets where you either have populations that are heavily integrated or populations that are completely out. And so in fintech, people talk about being top of wallet. Well, in these markets, we are, in many cases, the only wallet. And the banks have historically left behind a lot of young people. And so we help them get into the digital economy.
The growth that you've seen, I think, characterize it. It happened in, a year instead of, or even less, instead of 3 or 4 years based on the pandemic and the move to digital payments, even in Argentina. It was that, I mean, you didn't know that when you launched, but that's what happened.
Yeah, if you think about it, 85% of transactions in 2019 in Mexico were in cash, compared to around, 60% in the United States. And so these markets are heavily cash dependent. And the pandemic, therefore, accelerated a lot of changes that we expected in years, and it happened in weeks. And so at some point, when they closed down the card production facilities in Argentina, for 2 weeks, when they opened back up, we had to print over 120,000 cards in one go, in one day. And that we had never seen before. And so in that way, you're fast forwarding a digital integration and a digital transformation that would have taken years otherwise. And this is a global phenomenon. But going back to the region itself, in Latin America, we see a huge potential for growth and for disruption because the incumbents haven't banked all these people. And these are not particularly poor people, they're middle-class people. But the banks have always chosen to bank only the rich and in a very expensive way. That's why the return on equity on Latin American banks have been so high. And we see disruptors in Brazil, like our colleagues at Nubank. We see disruptors generally like Mercado Libre, but then there's us, growing. We just reached 250,000 users in Mexico in only 9 months.
Well, there's another disruptive technology called Bitcoin, and you saw what happened in El Salvador. Is that a friend? Are they frenemies? What would Bitcoin disrupt you? Would it become part of your ecosystem? How do you see the future with crypto and Uala?
Well, I think it's a really interesting space. There's a lot of innovation happening. There's a lot of other investors that are doing super interesting things in this space. The problem with situations like ours is that we just bought a bank in Argentina, a traditional bank, and the regulators haven't been clear about what they want for the intersection between the crypto world and the fiat world. And a similar thing happens in Mexico. So I think that what the region needs in general is regulatory clarity. And I think we're starting to see some of that play out in the United States with several players making it sort of clear that at some point there's going to be some clearer regulation. But in Latin America, we don't have that clarity. And so if you're in a highly regulated industry like the financial industry, you really need to know what the regulator will allow and what it won't. Argentina has capital controls, and so what we need is a clear directive from the central bank about what we can do and what we cannot do. Obviously, we don't operate in El Salvador. I think it's an interesting experiment, although, as we saw yesterday, there were quite a few glitches, as is normal in the beginning of any experiment. I think there's going to be more growth in this space for sure.